You're listening to the Home Education Podcast.uk, your first stop for home education stories, tips, ideas and adventures. Here today we have Frogger.
Hello.
How are you today, Frogger?
Fine.
And how old are you?
I think I'm 8 or maybe 7.
I think you're definitely 7. I seem to remember that one. There weren't as many candles on your cake as there would be if you were 8. And we also have Toad.
Hello.
How are you, Toad?
Fine.
Great. How old are you? I forgot to ask you that.
I think I might be 7, 8 in ages, and I am 6.
Yeah, ages and ages and ages till you're 7.
Yes, next year.
Next year you'll be 7, but you are indeed 6. We also have Baby G, who may or may not be audible in the background. You're very welcome to join us from wherever in the world you may be. On today's show, we share our dinosaur adventures as we meet archaeologists, paleontologists and scientists at Scarborough's Fossil Festival. We see what Toad and Frogger think of grammar schools and hear what we've been doing to celebrate 100 years of Roald Dahl. Here today, it's very murky. It's been a bit of an up and down day. I hope you're having great weather wherever you might be. Please do subscribe, share us, tell your friends. Thank you very much for listening to us and welcome to any new listeners. On Friday, we donned our umbrellas and Wellingtons and headed south to Scarborough. Our destination was the Rotunda Museum. What was at the Rotunda Museum?
Sense where you could do things to do with fossils, and we mainly went there to see Ian Whybrow.
Yes, thank you. Our destination was the Rotunda Museum for a day of fun at their Fossil Festival. The Rotunda Museum, I have to give them a shout out because they are fantastic. They really encourage learning from all children and adults and are very, very inclusive when it comes to our home educating group. You might have heard me talk about some of the art classes that we do with an artist. That's all organised by the Rotunda Museum as well. So, Frogger, can you tell us about the paleontologists?
What are they again?
No, what did you do? Do you remember the first lady we were talking to her? And she was talking to you about the different ages.
Oh yeah, she was. The 4 different years of how there was small, quite very small animals on the sea, then how they got biggerish, and then started to go on land.
That's right. She talked you through the 4 different stages that led us to the Jurassic period. So we started off with very small animals in the sea, and then how those animals began to move on to land, and then eventually how they became the dinosaurs. She was quite hands-on. She had a lot of things to show you, didn't she?
Yeah, she had some teddies as well.
She did, and one of the things I was really impressed with was that they had a trilobite, but a cuddly trilobite. I've never seen a cuddly trilobite before.
Me neither.
I was hoping they might have sold one inside because I quite fancied getting one, but they didn't, unfortunately. So, Toad, can you tell us what is a paleontologist?
It's a dinosaur expert. Someone who studies dinosaurs.
That's right, somebody who studies dinosaurs and fossils from that period. So we enjoyed talking to her. Then we spoke to somebody else who was from a museum, and we played a fun and interactive game called Brachiopod or No Brachiopod, where we had to guess whether the fossil that she was holding up was a brachiopod or not a brachiopod. And you guys won. You got 3 out of 3 and I got 1 wrong. So there were a few characteristics that we were looking for to describe a brachiopod. The shells needed to be the same size and they needed to be symmetrical as well. But I thought it was quite a tricky game. But you guys won. What did you win?
Some fossils.
A fossil. That's right. You got a fossil of the brachiopod, which was pretty cool that you could take home. Both of you did. Did you get anything else whilst we were in that tent?
A sticker.
A sticker. What was on your sticker?
Brachiopod aware, and then we got one for a fossil museum or something. And like that.
Yes, Toad?
And we also got drawings, and we also drawed some pictures of fossils.
You did, yeah. That was particularly interesting. And that was a lady who loves geology and art so much that she combines her love of both through sketchbooks, drawings and studies of the local area, particularly Saltwick Bay, which you listeners will know is a favourite haunt of ours. So she had out an area where children could draw and combine what they'd learned and studied about in their fossil exploration with something artistic. And yours was very colourful. It was nice block colours, Frogger. But told yours was a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
What was yours like?
Well, it looked the same as the fossils, and I did it with a pencil and some fine little tips.
Yeah.
Of course. And I coloured it in the colours I might have thought they might be.
Yeah, it was very colourful. You put in a lot of fine details. So again, it was different to Frogger's drawing, but they were both very interesting to look at, and I think you both enjoyed doing that as well, because it's okay for our art to be all different because we're different people, and that's what art is about, interpreting things in your own way.
Everyone likes to get it differently.
That's right. Everybody thinks about it and does it in their own way. So whilst we were there, the weather wasn't particularly good to us. And between the showers, we did speak to some experts from York, some of them from the York Castle Museum. Here's a wee taster of how we began to delve into dinosaur facts, and in particular learning about how fossils are made.
Well, you've got to imagine that this is the Earth. Okay, this tank. And at the bottom is the bottom of the sea. And then we've got a little creature here. Do you know what this is called? An ammonite, that's right. And this little ammonite lived at the same time as the dinosaurs. And you can see it's got hard bits and squidgy bits, soft bits. And this little ammonite would have been swimming around in the sea. But actually, it got older and older and eventually fell to the bottom of the ocean. And then over millions and millions of years, it got covered up. The oceans dried up, a lot of the oceans. It pressed down like this, and it changed into a fossil because of the pressure. Fossils are made from the hard bits of any creatures that are left after millions and millions and millions of years. So it changes from being shell, or in dinosaurs from being bones, to fossils, which are like rock.
Wow, that was so amazing.
But it takes millions and millions and millions and more years ago, because these lived over 65 million years ago.
Unfortunately, we didn't catch all of that conversation, but the team were informative, interesting, and we loved their hands-on approach. So onwards into the next part of the term, Bruce talked to a very excitable team who've been discovering a complete flipper from a dinosaur I think you guys might have heard of before. Here's what they had to say.
And this is a very special one. It was discovered just a couple of years ago and was donated to the museum in Oxford last year. And we've been slowly putting it back together again. So it's about 5.5 metres long. And this is it lying on the floor of the museum when we first started to put it all together. It's like a giant jigsaw puzzle. It was found at the bottom of the quarry by a fantastic group of people that check the quarry for fossils every now and then. They found a tiny piece of rib, and from that they found this whole skeleton. And it's called Eve, and this is what it would have looked like in real life. So we don't know if it was a girl or a boy, and we probably never will, because it's really hard to tell whether it was a girl or a boy just from the bones. But it had a nice, really, really long neck, about 2.5 metres long.
Wow, that is a long neck.
Yeah, and about a 5.5 metre long body.
So Eve is a plesiosaur?
A plesiosaur, yeah. And it would have had 4 flippers that helped it to swim through the water.
And this is one of the 4 flippers that you found?
So this is sort of reconstructed because these bones were scattered all over the quarry. So based on looking at other plesiosaurs that we know, I've put them bones back together where I think they would have come from the flipper.
third year video for a semester. Yeah. So just going to suspend.
So whereabouts was this found?
So this was found in a quarry near Peterborough.
Yeah.
Okay.
From a type of rock called the Oxford clay, which is used for brick making. So they quarry it to turn into bricks. And you find the Oxford clay goes all the way from Weymouth in the south, all the way up to Yorkshire. So you can actually find the Oxford clay in Caton Bay, and you can find maybe bones and ammonites and belemnites and other things that were living around the same time as Eve and swimming in the sea at the same time.
Wow. It's amazing how many of them they've actually managed to find and how they're all really well preserved.
They found hundreds of bones, and a lot of them were broken, so they glued them back together. I think they found over 600 pieces. It's taken hours and hours to put them all back together again.
So did they have to uncover them with a little brush and do it really, really slowly like they do on archaeology?
Yeah, they dig them out pretty slowly and then clean them off by brushing them. And we've got the skull is still in a big block of clay, and we're preparing it out at the museum at the moment. So what we've done is we CT scanned it, so we've used an X-ray machine to make 3D X-rays of the skull. So we know what it looks like when we help it to dig it out of the clay, so we know what it's going to look like as well.
That'll be really interesting.
Yeah, so there's lots of work, but it's going to be amazing when it's finished, because so lots of the bones are still preserved in these hard rocks, and we're going to CT scan them as well to see inside the rock. The computer, basically, the X-rays can look inside the rock and you can see the bones that no one else has ever seen before. So that's exciting. We can't wait to see what's inside.
So are you going to be part of that?
Yeah, we're hoping to help them do that in the next few years.
Wow. So just reading there, it says that the longest ever plesioneck is 7 metres long. So how big would the plesiosaur be altogether then?
So the longest neck plesiosaur had a 7 metre long neck, and in total the whole thing would be about 14 metres. So the neck is about half the length of its body. It's absolutely huge, and actually when it was first, a close relative of that, when it was first discovered in the 19th century in America, they couldn't believe it had such a long neck. They thought it must be the tail, so they put the head on the wrong end. And they realised their mistake because it's so long. No living animal has a neck that long. It's incredible, because all mammals like us and giraffes, we normally have 7 vertebrae in our neck, 7 bones. But plesiosaurs, the long neck ones, have up to 76, so that's more than 10 times as many.
That's amazing. Do you think maybe that's because they live in the sea, so they don't... They've got the water so the necks don't become damaged, so they don't need the weight.
Yeah, we don't really know how they would have swum with such a long neck, because it could have really affected their hydrodynamics and how they kept it straight, or so it's quite a puzzle. But it evolved. Long necks evolved from quite a few groups of plesiosaurs, so we know it must have been quite a successful adaptation. But quite weird looking animals. It's quite unusual.
Yeah, they are. They look a lot like the Loch Ness monster.
Yeah,
I always think
what
the Loch
people
Ness
think.
monster thing is maybe a plesiosaur left over.
Yeah, you always imagine the neck coming out of the water sort of like a swan, but actually we think they probably held them much straighter than that. They couldn't have bent them in that way, because it would have broken their necks.
Right, okay.
They wouldn't have been able to go in that configuration.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. I always thought that they had flexible necks, but that's really interesting to hear. Thank you very much for that. Wow, they really were excited when they were talking about that. And the great thing about this was that all of these experts came together, and you could really tell how passionate they were about the work that they did, but also about conveying that work to the children. And I personally thought they got the balance about right. They didn't dumb it down particularly, but they didn't make it so difficult to understand that the children and I struggled to understand it. I thought they got the balance just right. And you could really tell that they loved their jobs. So, Toad, out of the people that you met, would you fancy being a paleontologist or a geologist when you're older?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? How about you, Frogger?
Not really, because I like studying books, so I'll probably be an entomologist.
That's fair enough. I quite fancied being a paleontologist when I was younger, but I decided to go down the writing route instead. There are lots of careers out there, but the thing is it's lovely to see and refreshing to see people who are really enthused about what they are doing. So we finished off our visit at the top of the museum, which was very, very beautiful. Frogger, can you describe the room that we went into?
lighthouse. It was a bit like a lighthouse, the top, because it had all shelves with all different fossils in and all different paleontologists. And that's where we met Ian Whybrow.
Okay, yes, we did. We went up to the very top. We took the lift to the top and it opened up. And unfortunately, we missed the beginning of our talk with Ian Whybrow. Ian Whybrow, author of Harry and the Bucketful of Dinosaurs, Meerkat Madness, and lots of other works. We were unfortunately slightly late, but here's a snippet of his talk, which was especially for our home education group.
No, right. What did the piggy say? And I thought she would say... Oink. What did piggy say? Do you know what she said? She said... Rah. I said, no, that's the wrong animal. Try this one. Who's on the fence beside her pen? Say hello to the speckly. And what does the hen say? Rah. And all the animals we went through, the chicks, rah. The cow, rah. Now, I thought, well, this is crazy. I've taken all this time to write these nice rhymes. The thing is about writing rhymes for little children. They can't wait for a beginning, a middle, and an end. But they can do, if you have a rhyme, and they can guess it, it's that the pleasure in reading is anticipating what's going to happen next.
So a big thank you to Ian there for talking to our group. He was very funny and the children really enjoyed his company. He spoke a little bit about how children begin to talk and the importance of talking to children. Sadly, we ran out of time to ask him questions, but we did get 3 of Ian Whybrow's books signed. And one of them says rah inside. Do you remember? Because he talked about rah a lot by Ian Whybrow. So overall, we all had a very good day. What was your highlight, Frogger?
I don't really know. I think I might have 2 highlights: drawing the fossils and seeing Ian Whybrow.
Yeah, excellent. Good. Toad?
Yes.
What did you think?
Of what?
What was your highlight of the day at the Fossil Festival?
I think the game, meeting Ian Whybrow and drawing the fossils.
Okay, yeah, great. So there was lots to see and do. Unfortunately, there was a huge iguanodon show that they had to cancel because of the rain. And to our listeners, I do have to apologise for the shortness of the clip and also any kind of interference that you might hear. If you listen really carefully, you will hear that it was rain, because it rained and it rained and it rained and it rained, and we all got soggy and wet. Despite the fact that it was under canvas, we still all managed to get a little bit soaked.
And I didn't bring my brolly or coat.
And you didn't take your brolly or your coat, so I ended up putting my coat on you.
I brought my umbrella and my llama jumper, but I was hot. But I was the right temperature in my llama jumper, and I didn't get wet because of my brolly. No.
That's true. You were well prepared. I had a brolly as well. We didn't get too sudden because we didn't park too far away, but still we had a good time. It's a shame the weather wasn't better. However, we cannot control that. And if they do it again next year, that's the Rotunda Museum in Scarborough. It's always worth a visit. It's £3 per adult to go in normally. Of course, this is a special educational event, so we got to go in for free. It is definitely worth a visit if you're in Scarborough. Take a look at their website, find out what sort of events they've got coming up in the future. So a big thank you to everybody at Scarborough and everybody from York, all of the historians from that area as well. Very much a big thank you to you for creating an informative and interesting day. And thank you to Ian Whybrow as well for taking the time to speak to us. Moving on, there's been a lot in the news this week. Our new Prime Minister, who's called Theresa May, she has approved plans to allow people to start building more grammar schools. Does anybody know what a grammar school is?
Not a clue. Not a clue.
Okay, so let me take you back in time a few years to where Grandma and Grandad were 11 years old. Now, back in those days, quite a long time ago, they used to have a system where you took an exam at the age of 11 called the 11 plus. If you passed the 11 plus, you got to go to the grammar school. That was where the smart children went, the ones that passed the test. So they went and they maybe had more focus on more academic subjects. If you failed the 11 plus, you went to a comprehensive school where they might have more focus on training you up to do a manual job. So when she's talking about grammar schools are quite selective as to who they allow to go in, and they only allow the brightest children to go in. What do you think about that? At the moment, in our system, we have a system where all children are at the same kind of school. The brightest children with the not so bright children, they're all together. What do you think about that? If you had to take a test at age 11?
I don't really know because I'm not 11 yet and I haven't had a test on anything.
Okay, how about you, Toad?
I don't know either.
Okay, so picture it this way. 11 is what, 4 years away for you. So you go to school one day and you sit down, you have a test. And that test decides whether you go to a school that's for bright children, clever children who can pass exams, or you go to a school where you haven't passed this exam, you failed this exam, so you go to the other school that might focus more on manual work, like working jobs that work with your hands.
Well, if you have more or less a mixture, if you're in a school where the brighter ones are allowed to help out the ones which aren't so bright, that's great. But if you have two different schools where the bright one goes to and the not so bright one goes to, then that's not really great because that's not so great, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Some people believe that children who are really bright, if they're put into a grammar school, then they will be allowed to expand their knowledge and possibly end up more successful than if they stayed in a comprehensive school, which is true. Other people believe that at 11 years old, that children might be having an off day, so they don't do very well on the exam. They might have skills in a different area. And also, if you're 11 years old and you've just failed a test, what do you think that's going to do to your confidence?
It's probably going to make you a bit worried.
Do you think how would you feel if you did this exam and you passed it?
Excited, but a bit shy going to the new school to meet all these new people. I'd probably miss my friends from the other school.
Yeah, well, chances are some of them would be going to the grammar school with you. How about you, Toad? How would you feel if you failed the exam?
I would feel quite sad.
Do you think?
Mm-hmm.
Other people argue that those people who have lots of money will be able to go to the grammar schools. And not because they will pay money to go to the grammar schools, but when children are growing up, the more money you have, the more things you can do to ensure that your child will pass that test. So you can afford to pay for tutors. And quite often grammar schools are put up in expensive areas. So even if, say, somebody who was from a poorer background, they didn't have very much money but were very smart, they managed to pass the test, they might not be able to go to that grammar school anyway, because it won't be anywhere near where they actually live and it would cost too much money to go. So there's lots of things to think about. You can understand why people might think it's a good idea. What do you think overall? Do you think it's a good idea, or do you think we should stick with the system we've got now where everybody is on the same level?
Stick with the system we've got now.
What do you think, Todd? Should we let the bright ones go off and fulfill their academic stuff That didn't really make much sense. Should we allow the more academically abled children to go off and not be held back by some less intelligent children? Or should we have everybody together so that everybody has the same opportunities?
Everybody together.
Great, that's what I think as well. I was trying really hard not to put words into your mouth there, which is difficult, but I just want to give you a little bit of an understanding about what's going on with the grammar schools. Hopefully that won't affect us because we are home educating. One of the beauties of home educating is there are no SATs. There are no 11 pluses. There is no constant monitoring and comparing to your peers, unless, of course, you wanted to gather the data and compare your children to what would have been their peers at school. Of course, you're welcome to do that. So it is a lot more relaxing. And a lot of people argue that children develop in different ways and learn in different ways. So the school environment might actually hold back somebody who is really bright just because of the school environment doesn't suit their personality.
But that is true, though.
What is true, Frogger?
That everyone learns in different ways.
Yes, that's very true. Some people learn through pictures and drawing. Some people learn through reading.
Colours.
Colours, yes, that's a very good one. A lot of people learn with different materials and with colours. Dyslexics in particular, apparently if you change the colours of the words, then it can help them to remember and to understand a bit easier. So everybody is different, so it's not one system for all. But personally, I think one exam is a lot of pressure for children, and separating children, separation is never good from one group of intelligent and one group deemed as not so intelligent. Maybe one day you could have a discussion with Grandma and Grandad about how it actually affected them. And I think you'll find that one went to a grammar school, one didn't go to a grammar school. And I think you find that they both feel negatively about their experiences. If there's somebody out there who had a great experience with the 11 plus, please do contact us. Let us know. We'd love to hear your stories. We'd love to come to our own conclusions of whether the grammar schools would be a good idea or not. So please do get in touch. Moving on, this week we've been celebrating 100 years of Roald Dahl. So what have we been doing this week, Frogger?
We've been doing Roald Dahl sheets.
We have, and
yes, we have.
And what kind of activities have we been doing?
We did a crossword today, and yesterday I did a placemat, and I drew the BFG, and I coloured in some bunting.
Yeah, we got all ready for it. What did you do, Toad?
What did I do?
Yes.
I did a plate mat.
Mm-hmm.
One of them word searchy things with numbers on.
Ah, yes, we had to fit in the answers into the word grid, yeah.
And we got one wrong, I think.
Yeah, we did. We need to look up that one. We haven't completed it yet. What was the question again? Oh, yes. What type of animal is locked up in Mrs. Twit's cage?
Mr. and Mrs. Twit's cage.
Mr. and Mrs. Twit's cage. And we all know that it's a bird, but we could not find the answer as to what kind of bird it was. And it wasn't a roly-poly bird because that didn't fit. So we're a bit stuck. So if anyone knows the answer, please do put us out of our misery. We're going to see if we can find out the answer to that. So when you were doing your placemats, we were discussing who your favourite character was from the Roald Dahl books. Toad, who was your favourite character?
Matilda.
Matilda, and why is she your favourite character?
I think it was Matilda anyway. It wasn't. That was your favourite book. Oh yeah.
Anyway, but what do you like about Matilda?
I just actually really like it. I don't have a thing that I like about it. I just really like it.
Okay, that's fine. Just really like it. How about you, Frogger?
My favourite story is George and the Marvelous Medicine, and I read it when we went, and I read it not that long ago. And I think I read half of it during the night, and then the other half of it the next day.
You did. You read it. You were so inspired by Roald Dahl that you basically read it overnight because you couldn't put it down, which was amazing. Really inspired. And Roald Dahl is inspiring, fun, inspiring, and there's always a moral lesson in there as well. What happened to George's Marvellous Medicine?
He put quite a lot of things in, like shampoo, lipstick, brown paint to turn it brown.
Yak.
And then Grandma drank it. His grandma drank it. He's not very nice, so he did that to teach her a lesson. So she drank it, and she felt like she had fire in her tummy. So she said, "George, get a jug of water." So George poured that into her mouth, and there are some other things which happened to her before she grew and grew and grew, and then she asked for more. So she grew and grew and grew until her head was basically sticking out of the house.
Whoa, that is one big mean nana.
Grandma.
Oh, it's grandma. Sorry, one big mean grandma. Okay, so who's your favourite character then out of the Roald Dahl stories? Matilda. And do you have a reason why Matilda is your favourite?
Because she loves reading and I love reading. And I just like to look at her the way she's drawn by Quentin Blake, the illustrator.
Yeah, I think she's really cute as well. I like looking at the illustrations. One of my least favourite characters is Mrs. Trunchbull. I love to hate her. But right, moving on, we've had a good time with the Roald Dahl activities this week. If you get a chance at home, if you go on to the Puffin website, they often have live interactions with authors and illustrators, and there's always something going on. There was a Dennis the Menace one recently. Obviously, they've done a big Roald Dahl one. The Jacqueline Wilson has done one as well. So do look it out. If you're after a theme or a structure, it's a great place to look. So that's the Puffin website. Now it's time for Score of the Week. Toad, what's your score of the week?
It is the fossil thing.
The Fossil Festival. Yeah, the fossil thing, that was really good. The Fossil Festival, we all enjoyed that and had a good day out. Frogger, what's your score of the week?
Is it okay if I say 4 things?
4 scores of the week. Crikey, okay.
Number 1's building my dragon den.
Building a den for your dragon, which is actually a circus tent. Yes?
The fossil tent.
The fossil tent, is that the one where you discovered how fossils were actually made in the sand?
Yeah. And seeing Ian Whybrow.
Yeah, he was interesting to talk to, and he signed all of our books, which was lovely.
And having a sleepover at Nana's.
You did have a sleepover at Nana's. You had a great time, and Nana was also telling us what a good time she had. It's always nice to spend time with the family, and nice to have that little bit of independence away from mum and dad as well. So that's all we've got time for this week. Thank you very much to our listeners for listening, for our loyal listeners who are growing every week. And again, if you're new to our show, please do leave us a comment. Let us know if this is the first one. Let us know what you thought. Have you found any fossils this week? Are you a paleontologist? What do you want to be when you grow up? What do your kids want to be when they grow up? I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. But do leave a comment and let us know. Next week, join us after our trip to Flamingoland. We go on a zoo tour. We meet some animals and get a hands-on lesson with them. And we have a fun-filled day out with the education team there. So do join us next week. Meanwhile, are there any final thoughts from Toad?
No.
Any final thoughts from Frogger?
Not that I can think of.
Great stuff. Well, in that case then, it's a goodbye from Frogger.
See you later, alligator. See you Noel, crocodile.
And it's a goodbye from Toad.
See ya. I'm a pirate, yeah.
You know, it was Talk Like a Pirate Day in the middle of the week. And as all of our listeners will know, I'm really, really good at pirate impressions. not. So I'm not going to try and do one now, but there's an interesting snippet for you. Okay, so thanks again for listening, and we will catch you next week. Goodbye.
See you later, alligator.